out to be a BB gun. But yeah, so
Tom Udolphia.
We actually got the police body camera footage in Arizona, which is crazy in itself. But yeah, it pretty much revealed that exactly what happened. The police shot him, and they didn't. The cameras, at least from the angle, didn't show him reaching for the weapon or really presenting any much of a threat outside of having a toy gun and being black in America, above 6 feet. So yeah, RIP to the 33-year-old former Stanford defensive tackle. Bounced around the league, never actually played in a regular season game, but still from the football fraternity. So yeah.
And also, I think this is dude Teleferio. He was a running back for the Ravens. He died at 28 of a heart attack.
Yeah, and in some better news, salute to Frank Ragnow, who finished the game with a fractured throat and didn't give up a sack or a pressure. So shout out to him, man. Enjoy your Fat Boy Friday.
Raiders passed on him.
All right, Kenny. So with that, I'll cue up your bell.
Hey, so quick question.
Yes.
Where do you guys think I'm standing right now as I'm talking to y'all? Just
on
curious.
The toilet. If you have to ask, you're on the toilet, aren't you?
No.
That's not considered
in the lobby of the studio.
One more guess.
In front of the refrigerator, grabbing a beer.
Son of a bitch, yeah. Standing alone in my kitchen with the lights off, talking into my phone like a weirdo.
All right,
It's
so
actually really quiet in here, though. It's really quiet. I might just come in here and do this more often. But yeah, I know, right? But speaking of stuff that's actually really awesome and historic, Deion Sanders, after all the hoopla about him being named Jacksonville head state coach, and a lot of people having issues with it. Some people saying he has a shady past, but everybody else saying, we're happy he's going to bring notoriety to the program. Well, he's so far winning 100% of the way. He got the highest rated recruiting class, because today is the early signing period, which, by the way, ever since that was announced a couple years ago, a lot of kids are just, a lot of kids flock to it, and it's become the norm. It's actually kind of dope to see. A lot of kids can just be like, they can get it out the way. Most of the people can get most of their recruiting class done. But yeah, so Deion Sanders had the 40th overall class, according to pretty much all the major scouting services, not just for HBCUs, but the entire country. So he had the 40th overall recruiting class. His son was a quarterback, Shadur Sanders, who flipped from I think it was Florida International, Florida Atlantic, my bad. And then his son, who played at South Carolina, by the way, Joe Horn's son also played at South Carolina. It's supposed to be a first-round pick, and he declared for the draft. And Deion Sanders' son transferred to Jacksonville State. So you got his son playing corner, his other son playing quarterback, and then he also went out and signed the #1 overall JUCO prospect in the country. So that's a hell of a class for a dude in his first year, and two of his assistants, between just them two, have almost 60 years of coaching experience. So salute to Deion Sanders and Jacksonville State.
I mean, why not play for Deion Sanders, Can he coach?
Yeah, and I mean, if you're going to dominate the SWAC, and you're coming in with the highest rated recruiting class ever for any HBCU period, the level of everybody's level of play just has to come up now, or he's going to curb stomp everybody in that conference. So, water finds its level. But now on to the shit show that is college football. And Izzy, I just want you to know, everyone has COVID.
Boo. Predictable.
And my mom also says hi to everyone.
Hey.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah, everyone has COVID. So much so that Washington, who was supposed to play Oregon, but the game got canceled, USC was getting their ass kicked by UCLA, and then they came back at the end. Sorry, Pete. I decided to lay off you last week. But yeah, Bruins still suck. But Chip Kelly has this UCLA team looking better than it's looked since the height of the Harbaugh era. Honestly, they got the right system and the right guys. They also, Chip Kelly said that UCLA declined to play a bowl game. He said those guys gave it everything they had. So UCLA's not going to play a bowl game. And just like Boston College and a couple other people, they're not going to play the bowl game. But since Washington has a rash of COVID-19 outbreaks, and shout out to former Lawndale Cardinals, Elijah Jackson, and Michaela Steen, who played for Washington as freshmen. Unfortunately, they don't get to go to the Pac-12 title game, even though they technically won the Pac-12 North. Since they have too many COVID outbreaks, Oregon is taking their place. Oregon was supposed to play Washington, and, talk about how fate turns out. Now Oregon's going to play USC for the Pac-12 title. And hopefully they don't get, hopefully USC doesn't get their shit pushed in. And they're 13th in the country, 5-0, same record as Ohio State. And Keyshawn Johnson went off on Mike Bond, I think that's how you say his name, USC's athletic director, because he said, how do you not politic hard enough for USC? Like, how are you just okay with Ohio State and all these other schools who with losses jumping in front of USC to be in the college football playoff? USC's right outside of it at 13th. It's other teams. I think Coastal Carolina's ranked high. I think Coastal Carolina's ranked like 9th in the country. Which, by the way, I know none of y'all knew who Coastal Carolina was like 3 years ago.
I
Like
heard they had a bunch of mullets.
Yeah. Josh Norman, the only person I can name to come out of Coastal Carolina, and look how that turned out. So, yeah, USC, Oregon, Pac-12 title game. A lot of people would have probably picked this preseason, but a lot of the players on both sides opted out. Pac-12, honestly, wasn't bad despite the records of some teams. I mean, Arizona didn't win any games and Kevin Sumlin got fired, but they lost 2 of their best players. They got a ton of COVID, more transfers, the quarterback, just a bunch of stuff happened to where it was just like, if you didn't start out the gate good, like 3 weeks in, your season was pretty much screwed in the Pac-12. Even though a lot of these teams, I think, were 8-win teams in the Pac-12, they just, it just turned out bad that way, unfortunately. Utah had 2 guys transfer, one's Doug Brumfield, the running back, and then the other is Lawndale legend Jordan Wilmore, who was originally committed to USC. He's infamous for leading Lawndale to a state title, and he had 3 2,000-yard rushing seasons in high school, and was one of the highly touted players in Utah's class. But they have like 8 running backs. So, I mean, and offensively, they never really got off the ground this year, unfortunately, consistently. And it's a lot of guys hopping in the transfer portal. So, tap in with that. The biggest issues with the college football playoff is Dabo Swinney calling out Ohio State. He's at the beginning of the season, he said, if you can even make it to 5 games or 6 games, you should be thankful. 6 months later, he's like, you shouldn't punish teams like Florida and Texas A&M who managed to play 9 to 11 games, but you're going to put in a 5-win team like Ohio State, and I'm paraphrasing his words, but you're going to put in a 5-win Ohio State team over a Texas A&M that only lost to Alabama. Like, that's really unfair. And I think Texas A&M is ranked like 5th in the country. So they're having problems with that because it's like, okay, if you don't – like Florida lost to LSU, but they're going to play Alabama in the SEC title game. And, Texas A&M locked out of the SEC title game, but they're still a top 5 team. So it's looking like there might be 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff. The ACC title game is this weekend. I think Tulsa versus Cincinnati got canceled. The AAC conference title game. It's pretty much Cincinnati. They're kind of up in the air. They're ranked like 7th or 8th. Not only that, when it comes to college football, Ohio State's pretty much they've been given Northwestern to pretty much blow out. Like one of the players, Sean Wade for Ohio State, said we pretty much have to blow Northwestern out for this to be legitimate, or else people are going to question us being in the playoff. And then Notre Dame and Clemson are having a rematch this weekend. In the Mountain West, Boise State will be playing San Jose State. San Jose State's undefeated. They're like 7-0, I think. 7 or 8-0, something like that. But Boise State's obviously the favorite because they're Boise State. San Jose State's never actually been in the Mountain West title game. So we'll see what happens. And they actually got a couple local talent on their team too. So, yeah. And then it's official. The NCAA, and this is the last thing for college football, the NCAA announced that all transfers are eligible. The motion got passed, so everybody is eligible to play this year. If you're a transfer or whatever, you're all eligible to play. You won't lose that year. And that's it for college football. Oh, and everyone has COVID.
I wanted to ask you, because you weren't on the show at the time, but if Clemson loses this weekend to Notre Dame with 2 losses, do they belong in the playoff?
Yeah. You still have – they're the defending champs. And other than a team in their own conference, they haven't lost to anybody else. Like, that's how – like, Dabo Swinney's going to – he's already at odds with his own conference. And then he's going to say, well, Trevor Lawrence didn't play that first game. And then this game, I think they have almost everybody back. But then also Notre Dame was the cause of a lot of teams getting COVID because remember I said like they had like 40 people get COVID. They had a huge outbreak.
Remember that.
So Notre Dame was the cause of a huge outbreak. But we all going to forget that because they've managed to run the table. And also, fun fact, they're actually getting gypped as far as their cut for the ACC. I think they're only getting like 15 to 17 million, while other teams in the ACC, just to show up, are getting like 38 to 40. In the Big Ten, they're getting like 50 million a team. So Notre Dame isn't really getting a lot of the revenue sharing. But they're like a huge asset to the ACC. Like they are what makes them legitimate because North Carolina beat the dog shit of Miami this last week. North Carolina had 2 running backs, 20 carries. One of them had 300 yards, I think, and the other one had 200 yards. One running back had like almost 300 yards and like 3 touchdowns, averaged like 12 yards carry, and the other guy had like 11 yards carry. So 55 carries, almost 600 yards, and like 8 rushing touchdowns. North Carolina did that to Miami. So, yeah, the ACC is all over the place. And Clemson's going to be like, look, we were the main ones pounding the table. Teams canceled games against us. You can't hold it against us. You can't hold our schedule against us because a bunch of other teams pretty much sacrificed their seasons to play and have games canceled. So you can arguably say Ohio State has played no one because they haven't. Ohio State's played nobody but Indiana, and they barely beat Indiana. And Indiana lost, so I think, to Northwestern and other teams. And then you factor in the fact that Michigan was lifting weights and all that, and they canceled the game against Ohio State, but they were still working out afterwards, which is kind of sketch. Like you could say the Big Ten has been sketch all year. Michigan State's trash. You could make an argument that, like, no, it has to be Clemson. They were the only team, and like LSU fell off, and Clemson didn't fall off. And Clemson got bitch slapped in the title game. So it's kind of like, well, Clemson has to be there. If Alabama loses, you still would put Alabama there. Clemson is arguably better than Alabama.